Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to be talking about the Metaverse again, and specifically Grayscale's assessment of the Metaverse. So I-Man, I'm going to read this out to you, and I want you to give us your thoughts about this little section in this document that Grayscale sent out a couple of days ago. So it says, the market opportunity for bringing the Metaverse to life may be worth over $1 trillion in annual revenue and may compete with Web 2.0 companies worth $15 trillion in market value today. So the potential has attracted companies like Facebook to pivot towards the Metaverse. So what are your thoughts on the Metaverse attracting $1 trillion worth of annual revenue in the space that we've been talking about for, it feels like, 10 years now?
My thoughts, eh? Well, I don't know. I guess my initial thoughts were, when you introduced this doc to me and I went through it page by page, because it's like, whoa, Grayscale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never would have imagined that, these big time investors all of a sudden speaking on, and you could call this a shill. That's what this is, right? This is a document intended to persuade other investors to pay attention to this kind of sector, right? Like there's an emerging technology, whatever you want to call it, a movement, a paradigm shift in technology. You better start paying attention to it, right? So my initial gut instinct was, we saw this coming, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't have been participants in this so early, but it is a little shocking just to see like the confirmation and like the agreeability, I guess, of like, a much broader network of people starting to come to the same conclusion, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
It's a little surreal, like to me, like it's a little, and then they make these comparisons to like Netscape, like the Essential-Land is the Metaverse's Netscape moment, things like that. I'm like, what? Really? Is that really where we are? We're in the Netscape moment of the Metaverse.
Yeah, we certainly are.
I guess.
We're going to go over like how many people are in the Metaverse at the moment, but there's Grayscale has added mana to kind of their fund, and so you can invest mana if you have a 401k. Definitely not investment advice, but you could do that if you wanted to. And so to me, I think the surprising thing about this particular research paper from Grayscale is that it's $1 trillion in revenue on a yearly basis. So I don't know if there's not a whole lot of like trillions of dollars more valuable than having some sort of revenue at that scale. But I think the important thing is that there's going to be such a big industry that's amassing here that and it's pretty interesting that others are starting to see that too, especially at the scale of Grayscale.
Yeah, I think we have a unique perspective too, just because of our our specific involvement in the Metaverse. Like we've seen and witnessed things that a lot of other people have never seen and witnessed, like specifically through our platform, right? MetaZone.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the application of a lot of like blockchain utility, I guess, that, up until now, blockchain's been going through different like innovation cycles, right? And people are speculating what is the actual end game application to all this stuff, right? Like why do we need to tokenize digital assets?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we need to build this digital financial infrastructure, all this stuff, right? So naturally you're trying to find real world physical tie-ins to all these innovations, right? Because that's the existence, that's the space we live in, the physical world. So, but in the digital world, once you start to actually develop and you start to understand like the potential of the virtual canvas that is the Metaverse, like you start to understand all these blockchain innovations that have occurred up until this point have actual applications within these virtual worlds, right? And I don't think many people understand that yet because they haven't actually gotten that deep into the development of it.
I agree.
So those of you guys watching this, I think we do provide somewhat of a unique perspective on that, because like we've seen it. We've seen people build like DeFi protocols into these content applications, right? That can be deployed in the Metaverse. Like these are things that don't innately come to mind, right? Like they surprised us even.
They did.
Right?
They did.
So I think once we saw things like that, we kind of understood the potential of the Metaverse pretty early, right? Before we had all this confirmation, before we had all this validation, I guess, from like these giant conglomerates, right? But this is just reinforcement to that already understood belief we had, you know?
I was this reminds me of the presentation that Zuckerberg gave about the metaverse and kind of changing their name to Meta. He said that humans are never going to get really, that comfortable with looking at a little rectangle all the time, right? We look at rectangles all the time, right? Our screens, our laptops, our phones. And what he said, why he thought the metaverse is important is that it makes things a little bit more intuitive. And when I heard that, it made a lot of sense because when you, like I mentioned this before, if you go to any DeFi page, any DeFi like project, and you go and try to use their protocol to, let's say, stake your crypto, it's not intuitive. It's not clear exactly what is happening. And I think if you build that protocol like in 3D in the metaverse, it becomes a little bit more intuitive. Like, what you're going to do when you walk into a bank. Like, it's very clear what needs to happen. It's not very clear when you stumble upon some DeFi product and all of a sudden they're offering you 1,000% yields. Like, what is actually happening? So when he explained that the metaverse helps makes things more intuitive, like it clicked. And the best way to kind of illustrate that is like if you look at the comparison between 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 for the web, it's like 1.0 was just read. And so in this era of the internet, you basically had to code an entire website to have a website. In Web 2.0, you had platforms that allow you to make websites that enabled anybody to come in and edit those websites. Like you have Squarespace, you have all these different protocol platforms that you can use to make websites. And then now we have websites, which, in this case, it's a metaverse that has ownable content, right? Now we can own digital stuff. And so the reason why this is a big deal is that we grew up playing games, and games are like microverses. They're micro metaverses. And we understand the implications of economics because of these games. And now when you join that with ownable digital content, now you have potential economies that can compete with countries about to emerge. And then you add decentralized autonomous organizations, and you have governments, potentially a better structure for governance than what we see today, right, in the traditional space. So I think $1 trillion is probably the starting point of what the metaverse is going to turn into, because I think a lot of commerce will happen through the metaverse. So this is so far, kind of the big deal here about this article is that normal people are going to read this, and I believe they're going to be super surprised with like the numbers that they see here.
What numbers in particular? The $1 trillion plus trillion prediction?
Yeah, all this? And here's like probably the biggest supporting thing is that like we have the U.S. average of 65 and older, boomers, Gen X, millennials, and then Gen Z. So Gen Z spends a majority of their time in some digital environment, right? Fortnite, Minecraft, things like that. And so as the generations progress, the more time they spend in digital spaces. And then you introduce the fact that you can own digital content, and then they're locked in. It's going to be like the Matrix, basically.
Yeah, the Matrix, a little less dystopic. I don't think you're gonna die if you if you die in the metaverse. Hopefully, it doesn't get to that point unless somebody develops some sort of ultra weird metaverse experience where you have to tie in like your freaking central nervous system to like your avatar. Hopefully, nobody goes that far with it. But the point being, you're right. Like I like the way you explain like. Because the idea of the metaverse is like it's open to interpretation at the point, and you've been kind of like honing in on the idea of like it's this point in time, right, where people value their digital existence much more than their physical, and there's plenty of evidence to support that happening. I see it with my own like nieces and nephews. Like the next generation clearly values the digital space more than the physical.
Yeah.
So. I think we're getting there.
I wonder if that's like a component of like the human mind. Like we're capable of more things in the digital space, even if it's something as simple as like flying across a piece of land. Maybe that has some sort of psychological effect that we're more interested. We'd rather be doing that than like driving to the store to get some groceries or something.
Of course. It's like the fruition of like human imagination. I think like we've always imagined ourselves to be this powerful, right? Or else we wouldn't have told these tales in the past. We wouldn't have written stories where we're freaking magical beings with these magical powers. We could fly. We were superheroes, right? Like, the Stan Lees of the world wouldn't have existed if they didn't have this mental, like, I don't know, this mental goal of surpassing what it is to be a human, right? Like to be much more powerful. The metaverse introduces like the actual possibility, right? Like our own identity can be tied to these superpower, like, existence, these avatars. Like we have superpowers in this space. So that is attractive, I think, like on a human psychology level. It's something unavoidable, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So all of a sudden we actually get to live our dreams. We don't just have to, be subjected to our, our nighttime routines in order to exist in that state.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. So
but of course there's a lot of, it's a lot of pieces that need to be laid out in order to get to that point. But I think the point of these research and stuff and the acknowledgement of what's happening in this industry is we're on our way to that reality, right? And it's unavoidable. It's too attractive. There's too many people working on it. It's inevitable at this point.
Right.
So, I think that's the main takeaway, right?
No, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And I guess if you're listening to us right now, you're wondering, well, so what? Like, what's the big deal here? And it's the fact that, in this section of the paper, it says the total market cap of the leading Web 3.0 Metaverse crypto networks sit at $27.5 billion. So this pales in comparison to the $900 billion market cap of Facebook, the $2 trillion market cap of gaming sector, and the $14.8 trillion market cap of Web 2.0 companies that could shift into the metaverse. So this is just a long way of saying that this is still super, super early in terms of like ownable metaverses. And here's a chart to kind of explain. Here's where all the companies are right now, which could shift to the metaverse, and here's our current state of ownable metaverses. And then it further illustrates, it goes deeper into how many people are actually in the space. And it says there's 50,000 all-time users, active wallets within these decentralized metaverses. So 50,000.
So basically like a Decentraland, Somnium, CryptoVoxels, Sandbox users, essentially, right?
Yeah, basically. And not only that, it's done a 10x over 2020. And so back when we were building in Decentraland, there's like less than 5,000 people in that world. And if you go watch our podcast, we say that all the time. There's like specks of people here and there in Decentraland.
Yeah, we're like, where the hell is everybody, dude?
Yeah, we're wondering why nobody was here, but it was that early. That's why.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, I guess. It's like, dude, it's like we're all partying like with like 10 of us. It's like, dude, what? It's like, where are all the people at, man? But this is, I think, largely, this is how, I guess, evolution of I don't know, innovation happens, I guess. And then, of course, the whole Facebook pivot contributed big time to like this hysteria we're seeing. All of a sudden, this mass awareness and this FOMO. Yeah, people want to be a part of the metaverse, and they're itching like to figure out how to do that, right?
Yeah. So it's like one of my favorite quotes is "Big things have small beginnings."
There you go, dude. Exactly. So I guess we didn't really realize how. Well, we did realize. We noticed it. We noticed that there wasn't a lot of things being developed, like from a content perspective. Well, there wasn't enough to do in the metaverse. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what's kept us involved for so long. Because being this early to such like an industry with this much potential, it just means there's so much opportunity to contribute, right? So every day you wake up and you recognize new problems that need to be solved. Like, how can you think about anything else? You know, it's just there's too much to captivate our attention.
So true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then, of course, we have like the big potential of ownable metaverses, but then we have some warning signs. So we had the founder of Second Life chime in, and we've mentioned Second Life before as a prototype of like actual metaverses, and they were extremely successful. They had revenues of $1 billion on a yearly basis. And that was huge. That's huge.
That was one of our early motivations too, I think, to get involved in this, because we recognize that. Like, hey, if Second Life could do it, Decentraland can do it too. You know,
100%. We had two thoughts leading up to our 2 years in the metaverse. We had two thoughts: are we crazy? And second, we're not crazy because Second Life did it.
Yeah, Second Life, and I would categorize also like World of Warcraft. Yeah, along the lines of
but Second Life is completely different. It's like it's just a world with no purpose. Like you create whatever you want out of Second Life.
Yeah, that is a huge distinguishing factor. Yeah, is that World of Warcraft's more of like a game verse. It's very focused. Like there's guidance along your whole like progression as a participant within that game ecosystem. But Second Life, you make of it whatever you want to do. Just like real life, right? You could be a bum in Second Life if you want. I think they even have jails.
Yeah, you can go to jail. Yeah.
You could violate some virtual law and you're fucking locked up, dude. Yeah. And we saw Decentraland as having that exact same like potential, but even more so because of the whole blockchain nature supporting it all. You know. Right.
So he outlined some warning signs. He issues some warnings. Basically, it says one of the big deals that I don't think has been sufficiently been built is the identity aspect in the metaverse. So, like there are no consequences for your actions in the digital space right now. Like, 'cause you could just create a username, you can say whatever you want, and then if it gets deleted, you just create another one. And so there are largely no identity infrastructure right now in the blockchain space, and I do think it's important. You can still remain anonymous even though you have an identity. It's basically tracking your blockchain activity. That way you could create an ability to take out a loan, right, at better rates because your blockchain activity indicates that you manage your money well, right? So that needs to be built. I don't think it's done yet. So it's a good warning sign that this guy is putting out. The other one is the fact that the metaverse implies that you're going to stick some headset on your face, and that's how you're going to operate in that world. I disagree. Obviously, the reason why Gen Zers are spending a lot of time in their own metaverse is because they're on their phones and they're playing Fortnite, and so I think the metaverse is going to be part of that, right? You don't need to stick a screen onto your face in order to be in the metaverse. So a lot of these warning signs are good, but they're not. I don't think they're really huge warning signs. And then, of course, the Pokemon Go creator chimes in. He says, if the metaverse is built within a virtual headset, it's going to be a dystopian nightmare. And I largely agree. However, I don't think we don't have the stamina to stick a screen onto our face for long periods of time. I think the technology could improve, but how much?
Maybe not you, but specific,
humans are going to evolve for like long-term headsets.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great understandings or like revelations about like humanity is like how adaptable we are as beings.
Sure.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a generation of people who would prefer to just have a device over their eyes, as opposed to not having it, because it brings you into a much more
stimulating
beneficial reality, right? Like without this device, you suck balls.
Yeah, you can't fly
straight up.
Yeah,
like who wants to expose themselves? Like if I have this awesome virtual existence, I'm an amazing champion of some game. I have this metaverse mansion. I got all these freaking fans, and I'm just so cool.
Yeah.
Why would I ever want to take that off of me? Then who knows what biology will do in response to that? We'll see many, many years from now. But there's also people working on, what's the word? Workarounds, like Elon Musk and the whole Neuralink thing, right? Sure. Like who knows how far that will go. Right. Maybe you don't have to wear a device in the future. Right. So
basically your mind will just select an application and then you just you're in the metaverse. Like your brain just feeds that data.
Exactly. So I can see where Pokemon Go creator John Hanke can you could go down this deep rabbit hole of what does humanity turn into if the metaverse does come to reality? It's just that much more awesome than physical existence. What do we become as, a species?
Yeah, think about that. Man, you have Neuralink set up, you download the Pokemon Go app, and then you're like in your kitchen, you're making some food. All of a sudden, there's a Charmander that pops around the corner.
Hell yeah, dude.
That would be crazy.
All of a sudden, I'm Ash Ketchum, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna choose to be Ash Ketchum, man. Yeah. If it means I get to catch this super rare, Pokemon in my kitchen, right?
Yeah. And this game runs in the background, so you're like just chilling, watching a movie, and there's like Pokemon popping around, like in your house.
Hell yeah, dude. So we've talked about this in length before. Any new technology, there's the optimist, the pessimist, there's the double-edged sword analogy, all this shit, right? It is what it is, but I still think it's this unavoidable, inevitable reality that's approaching. That's why Grayscale is releasing this thesis. Yeah. Just to warn the world, is like, you guys better be paying attention to this sector. The same thing we've been saying for years. You guys better be paying attention to the development of this industry.
Yep.
Because it's kind of inevitable at this point.
Yep, I agree.
Too many people are working towards it. Facebook kind of accelerated, added tons of fuel to this fire.
Yep.
So it is what it is. If you like it, I guess join this effort. If you don't, dude, shit, good luck, mate.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as me and you recognize, right? Dude, there's so many detriments to not being social media participants.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That has a legitimate negative. Yeah, that has consequences in your life, right?
Yeah.
I think the metaverse is going to be the same thing. If you choose not to participate, it's going to have profound consequences on your
business,
life.
Your life. Yeah, I totally agree. All right, well, that has been a discussion on Grayscale's thoughts on the metaverse, and definitely pay attention. We've been talking about this for a long time. I think others are starting to chime in with their 2 cents, and they're supporting our original thesis. So pay attention. Let us know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at The Block Runner and also at MetaZone.io, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.